So what we're going to do in this video, the title may sound like clickbait, we're going to install the VM that comes with, it's easy to do, the Docker VM that comes with Omarchy. Then we're going to use that Docker VM and turn it into a VM. No, it's Docker, just separate the two, Docker VM. We're going to use the Docker that's easy to install on Omarchy. We'll do that first. And then we're going to convert that Docker without downloading Windows 11 again into a VM. And then with that VM, we're going to install PHOSHOP and PRMEIER, and you can use it to a degree. I mean, I'll explain as I go along why that we do this. So anyway, that's the preamble. And there's obviously a script to help you. Let's dive in. Okay, so here we are in Omarchy, and we're going to install Windows as a VM, as a Docker thingy. As you see in my other videos, I don't really understand what Docker does. It's like a containerized thing, but it's in 3.1. I sort of skimmed over it, but as you'll see, it become quite important in a bit. Anyway, so let's launch the manager thing and then click install. And then down the bottom there, you've got a thing that says Windows. So you hit that, password, and it'll start to pull down some bits. Now, what you can do is you can allocate how much RAM you want for your VM. So I'm going to give it 16 gig, which is, I've got 32 gig machine. I'm going to give it that because I mean, if I'm going to use the VM, I'm only going to be using that. And how many CPU cores? I've got 32 cores, so let's give it 16. And then I'm going to give it 128 gig, I think. And press enter. I'll give it a username. I'll just use a generic one. Add a password, a generic one. And then yes, to go forward with the configuration. So now what it'll do, it'll pull down a Docker image of Windows 11. So just watch this go through. Now, here we go. Opening browser to monitor installation. There it is. There is requesting it from server. Oh, let's get rid of that up there. Can I move that around? Yes. Let's put that over there. And then it'll come down. So yeah, so there are times, they've done this, there are times when you're going to need access potentially to Windows to get into things, to do stuff. There's some things that just, you can't do on Linux. Not many. So, they're giving you access to this, and some, I'm trying to think what doesn't work though. I mean, obviously, certain packages won't run on Linux completely, but on a day-to-day thing, as a developer, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a developer. I mean, I come from obviously a creative world, so I know the things that don't work on Linux and the things that don't work on a Mac and Windows got a lot of parity, but Linux has got some oddities. So this is interesting as well. It keeps coming up with this thing here. It says depreciate endpoint. But I've already done a test installation with this, and it works fine. So let's just rumble through this. But it is really handy. I mean, it's interesting when you do something like Bazzite and you install DaVinci Resolve on Bazzite, which has like a thing called a ujust command. It makes a virtual box and puts DaVinci Resolve in it. So it can creates its own environment. And this is obviously what Docker does. I mean, you can use Docker for, I actually do know what it is, but you can use Docker for things like an AI unit. You could just have it specifically to do a Docker to do AI, but you can use it, it's like a safe container that you can work in and run another OS. On Bazzite and stuff, it's what are they called, virtualboxes. So you can install Ubuntu into a box on Bazzite. It's just virtualization. So I mean, you can do some Windows. On Windows, you can run. You see lots of people demonstrating when they demonstrate operating systems, and they don't fully commit. They do like a VM, don't they? They run a VM. You've got Oracle's VM box. On Mac, you've got Parallels, and there was another one that used to be on. I can't remember what it was. There was Parallels, and then there was another one. VMware. I don't know, the Parallels is the big one for Mac to run Windows, and you can also run Linux on there, but unfortunately you've got some restrictions because that's ARM based, Macs are ARM based, so it's difficult. So you couldn't, there's certain things that won't work. You can run Windows 11 on Mac, but it's the ARM version. And there are, I mean, I haven't tested it for ages, but there are certain bits that don't work. I remember I tried to put Half-Life on there as a game, and it wouldn't, because there was something that was missing. This was ages ago. But I know that everybody's getting much more, getting their heads around the M1 chips, the M chips, much more. And I actually think, I was reading, I think it's on Git somewhere, someone's actually got this working, got Omarchy working on an M1. I may have made that up and not read it properly, but I think that was on there. But virtualization plays a huge part in what we do today. And Docker is virtualized. There's Kubernetes or something as well. But, so literally you can have 3 different types of machines running and your base configuration. If you buy into like cloud services, most of the websites these days aren't physical boxes anymore. There's like a box, and then it's got 20 VMs running on there, 20 virtual private servers, and each one of those is an installation of sort of, I don't know, Ubuntu or Alma Linux or something, and they're all containerized. So you're just doing exactly the same thing, another operating system containerized on your desktop with what's going on here. But this is really like slick. I mean, obviously they know, the team behind Omarchy knows that people need to have access to these kind of things. So they've just built this straight in. This came in 3.1. I sort of skipped it in my update video on 3.1 because it doesn't really apply to me that often. But yeah, I mean, I've still got a Mac. But I suppose if you're a Windows user and you weren't Mac and you just decided, I've had enough. I've had enough with Windows. I've come over to Omarchy, but there's still some things. They built this in, so it's a really sort of seamless transition for you that you could still access those, whatever it is you need to access on the machine. You can still get there. What are we up to now? 67% quota exceeded. I don't know what these warning messages mean down here. And it's running in a browser window, obviously. So what are we up to now? 71, 72%. And you can see it here. Network Windows default created. Container Omarchy -Windows started. Windows VM is starting up. So it should sort of get there in a minute. Bear with it. But I mean, we're going to go through all the pain, aren't we, with Windows? It's probably, I mean, I don't know. Is it going to ask me for like advertising stuff and all the garbage that comes with Windows? One of the things that really turns people off about Windows is all that rubbish. And I don't know why they do it. I mean, Windows is it's actually probably, if you stripped all the crap off, it's not that bad an OS, and it's supported us for years, isn't it? But the stuff they've laid on, like Copilot and all the telemetry they send back, and the fact that there's all sorts of that stupid bar that pops out with tons of advertising on it, and it's just awful. It's just an awful user experience now. I mean, I know they try and make it accessible for people, but it's just not great. And for games, it's interesting as well, because we've just got the Xbox Ally X that's come out, which is literally supposed to be like an Xbox on a handheld. You still don't know, if that's running Windows, it's not, optimum. I know immediately the first thing the reviewers did, they tried to put Barzite on there, and they got better performance. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? If you're trying to compete in that thing, they need to do like a stripped down Windows version, which is, they don't care, do they? Stripped down Windows version that's purely aimed at games. That could be a bit of a game changer for people like Steam, because if there was Windows games version that literally stripped everything out, made Windows 11 run at like the most it could, then that would be problematic for Steam, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, because device manufacturers, handheld stuff would jump at it if there was a small footprint. And Steam wouldn't have the monopoly, because a big deal with Steam is it's Arch. It's really optimized. So, and it's just optimized for games, which Windows 11, if you install it, just isn't. Anyway, we're nearly there. We're nearly at the end. What are we going to do? Your computers, those horrible screens which come up are going to come up, aren't they? Here we go. It's extracting the image. Okay. Adding drives to images. Now this was I don't think it ends. I think it does this thing. This window sits here and it doesn't end. I don't think that window shuts down. Initializing network, configure and boot, connected to VOC. Here we are, Windows for Docker. Something about my hard drive failing. Failed to load boot02. And there it is. Getting a few things ready. We're sending back your data so we can sell you stuff. Here we go. Now, obviously, this is unlicensed, so if you wanted, you'd have to activate it, install in Windows. Here we go. This is what we got over here. It's the usual. Your PC may restart several times. Yeah. God almighty. I mean, it's. I went back 20 years ago, and we've always had Windows around. I've always had to have Windows around for certain things. You know, there's just things you have to have it around for, but I've never used it on a day-to-day basis since the last version of Windows that was by main Windows, I think was Windows NT. That sort of dates me. No, it might be Windows 98. No, 98 NT. And then I switched to Mac. I switched to Mac pretty much when those iMacs came out, the ones that were all the plasticky things. I think the problem we had, all our 3D software, because back then I was doing 3D, was on Windows. So Lightwave, Softimage, and all that only ran on Windows. So if you were doing 3D, you had to stick to it. But then over time, that's all drifted over, hasn't it? So over time, it's ported, and editing software. Mac, what did Mac have? It had Final Cut, obviously, but did Avid run on it? I think Avid ran on it as well. But yeah, I mean, it was the early days of Premiere as well. So everything was basically easier to do on Windows back then, but that's obviously just changed so dramatically now because there's such parity with software across platforms apart from Linux. But we're getting there. It's getting there. There'll come a day. There'll come a day when you just don't need to do this. And it's great to see laptops going on sale now that are pre-installed with Linux. I know that System 76 do their laptops. Tux, there's a couple of laptop manufacturers now put out, and Dell did it, didn't they, for a while? They put out pre-installed Linux. And obviously a framework laptop works perfectly with Omarchy. I just did my son's machine, but I had to switch that back to Windows, sadly, because they don't use Linux at school, and that would throw him slightly. But yeah, so I mean, it's getting there, but it's great that you can virtualize. I remember we used to have a lot of trouble doing this kind of stuff. It was a lot of steps to get virtualization going, and you'd need like a proper techie guy to do this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of systems now that you buy a big piece of hardware. Here it goes. Oh, got a screensaver. Don't want that. Let's try it. What are we going to get now? Preparing your installation. Come on. Don't let me down, Windows. Here we are. Your computer may restart a few times. It's weird. This doesn't end. I have already installed this once to just test it, and it just doesn't do anything. It's a bit messy, but I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's really easy to do this. Here we go, installing 33%. And then you've got your you should have your VM in a minute. That's not a hugely long install, is it? I'm sure the Docker image has got less rubbish built onto it than the normal rubbish install that you have to do where you like sign away your life and stuff like that to Microsoft. Yeah, 42%. Getting there. Just bear with me, we'll get there. 16 gigs. What did I do? RAM 16 gig, 16 cores. And I suppose the thing is, because Omarchy is quite lightweight, you can actually allocate a lot more resources to your VM. Obviously, it becomes, here we go, 62. Is it going to go? Display outputs, doing it again. Windows for Docker. Oh, come on. It is. It's like reliving the horrors of a Windows 11 installation, but like virtualized. Keep going. It's one of these things where do I speed it up and not show it you happening, or do I show it to you in real time and just talk over the top, which I think is what I'm doing. But you can see it here. It's sort of like it's one of these things. I think you need to see it, and then you can sort of like make your mind up. But yeah, I don't know if someone could tell me in the comments what apps you specifically need. I mean, by the way, this VM isn't doesn't have graphics acceleration, so you can't do games, and you can't do, you know, there's certain things you can't do because it doesn't have a direct pipe through to the GPU. So you're quite limited. There's no hardware acceleration involved as to what you can do. So I mean, I would be, somebody could write in the comments, what would you do with this? Yeah, on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I know what I would do because of my world, but it's interesting outside of, you know, Photoshop and that kind of stuff, what apps only live on Windows 11 that you can't sort of whine. Well, I suppose it made it easier, and if you start to go down the road of whine, doing bottles and running apps independently, that takes away the ease. Here we go. And we're in. Let's just close that window down. I'm going to just quit out of that one. Oh, not that one. I've done it. That's a mistake. What have I done? I've closed the whole thing. Let's go back to the VM. Hang on. Classic. Windows, is it there? Yeah, it is. Look. That's my fault, that. I wanted to close that little window. It's doing it now. I've closed the whole thing. That's what I mean. I didn't understand that box. It doesn't end. So, hang on. Here we go. It might take a few minutes. Tell me about it. It's probably going to bin out now. Yes, the installer bit just doesn't end. The box just sits there. Oh, come on. Come on. The joy. It's a joyful. Every Windows installation is a sort of every Windows 11 installation, an angel dies in heaven, in OS heaven. It's just the worst thing. Yeah, who knows? I mean, the size of Microsoft and what they get up to, they don't care. They don't seem to care, do they? They just keep churning this stuff out because, like, if 80% of you, 70% of you just take it as it is, then they'll just keep churning it out. And it's like, you know, it got Windows 7 wasn't bad. Windows 8 was a nightmare. Windows 10's just died. Obviously, they've cut the head off that. So if you are moving, that's why it's probably a great time, Windows 10 people, to move, almost there, to move over to, and here it is, we're in it, to move over to Linux. Don't, you know what I mean? Okay, so I'm in. Right, so that's it. That's basically Windows. So you get if I just go into settings, here it is. It's my machine, system. What's the driver? What's the video driver? Display. And it's using graphics. Remote desktop. So I'm sort of remote desktop. You connect via remote desktop to it. But I suppose you can internet to it, can't you? You can use internet, Microsoft Edge. Don't like that. Oh yeah, I'm on Windows. It's a containerized, so I can accept other cookies. And then just type up here Omarchy. If I can spell it, Omarchy. There we are. Beautiful modern opinionated operating system. There we go. And that's it. So let's just shut this down. Shut down. And that's it. So we've basically got a Windows 11 VM installed on Omarchy. Now, if you want to get it back, you can type Windows. I did this earlier on when I messed up with that thing. Hit Windows, it'll come up and say can take 15 to 30 minutes. For 30 minutes, 15 to 30 seconds. So let it do its thing. And there it is. Boots up. And it boots straight in because we gave it the admin of the user password. But yeah, so, oh, Lots of things flashing, a little bit of flashing. File Explorer, where does it see on the drives then? This PC, Windows C drive. There's my Windows C drive. So basically, yeah, my 128 gig, it's quite separate from the machine. Yes, that's great, because it's basically quite separate from the rest of the system, and it's containerized. So it's isolated. So it can't infect Omarchy with its things. Anyway, okay, let's just shut that down again. And there you go. So there's Windows 11 running on Omarchy. Okay, so we've got Windows 11 installed in a Docker container. Now, that's not necessarily the best way to run things if you want to do a bit more to it. I mean, we want to put PHOSHOP on there and Premiere, so really we need a VM. Like, I know it's like listed here as a VM, but we want to have a proper VM. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to run a script which will take our pre-downloaded Windows 11, turn it into a VM, and then we can install PHOSHOP and Premiere. So let's just jump back over here and go to another screen. Right, so just show you. So your type Windows, you can launch it and it comes up. There you go. And that's your Docker VM. And great, you can play with it. Okay, so let's shut that down. He says, and let me just check if I've got, I think I need to install, because I don't use, let me install console. So apps, install, packages, console. It's just easy for me to work with this. Okay, and now what I need to do is launch console, launch the file browser, and in my downloads area, I've got the script. So first of all, change permissions, chmod plus x, and then drag it over, and then run it. And this will download a lot of bits and bobs. Off it goes. It also makes some amendments to the firewall to allow it to bridge. Okay. And because the Omarchy installs the VM package in the same place all the time, it can do this. If they move the location this thing installs, this will break. So now I'll prep it. Waiting for disk and NVRAM. But yeah, here we go. First bit, and then type your password. Let it do its thing. Okay, and then that one, and then authenticate. And it's somewhere around here. Is it that one? Running, open. There it is. So there's the VM thing running now. Now what we need to do, because it's all sort of like, we need to get some, install some additional drivers on there. So let's shut this down. It's quite easy to do. So shut that down, shut down. Now in the bottom of the script file, quit. In the bottom of the script here, I've copied it in. You just need to do this. You need to grab this bit here. If you read through it, and then click copy, and then paste. And this downloads an ISO of drivers for the VM, which we'll need. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go back into the VM manager. We're going to mount this ISO and then install the drivers. But you can see it's all in here. Hopefully the new CD didn't run, blah, blah, blah. But just follow along you get there. So it's 750 meg. Take a little bit of time. We don't need that window, let's close that one. Okay, that's all good. So now I need to go to here, and then you go to virtual. There's my machine manager. Type that in again. Q, authenticate. Here's my machine, open. Not running. Info, here we go. So we need to add hardware. We need to storage. We need to add a CD-ROM device and manage. And then we need to browse for it. Browse local. And in VM, here, there's an ISO. Click on that. Open. Finish. And it comes up with an error, but just go yes. And then apply. Hopefully that's all done. And then, okay, so now I need to launch my VM. Boot it. Here it comes. Let's get this full screen. Up it comes. Right, so all we need to do is go into File Manager, and now you should have a CD-ROM drive. There it is. And we need to run this. Virtuo Win Guest Tools, and then just agree to everything. Install. Next. I accept. Next. Install. Finish. Let it do its thing. Close. Now we need to make that apply. We need to reboot the VM. Reboot. Restart. Hopefully I'm still appearing in the bottom right hand corner here. Please wait. Okay, and then sort your display out. Display settings. And we want it to be, I don't know, 1920 by 1080. Right here. You can see, I saw you, there you are. Keep changes. Okay, and then we're ready to go. So that's that done. So the next phase is to install Adobe Creative Suite. We've got internet access, is all ready to go. Yep. Let's shut that down. And then back to me. So you're ready to go. So we'll move on to the last part of this, which is to actually install Photoshop and Premiere. Okay, so the last part of the puzzle here. We've used the Docker container, the Docker that was brought down via Omarchy, and now we've translated it into a VM without having to go through the nightmare of downloading Windows 11 again and all that kind of stuff. And why have we done it? Because basically, as the title of the video shows, we want to have Photoshop and Premiere running. And I think Docker's a lot slower, and switching it to this platform allows it to run quicker. Now, you can't really, I don't think you could edit with it. You can't really work with it. But the reason that you need it sometimes, and it's like the cord cutting part of moving over to Omarchy or moving over to Linux anyway, is that in the commercial world, you get files sent to you that you just cannot open on any other platform apart from Windows. Now, I've not tried installing Photoshop or Premiere on that Docker thing to see how it works, but I wouldn't like to. I think it would be a nightmare. So this is like a halfway house between using the GPU in here, but not fully using it, if that makes sense. Not like a bare bones one where it's got full GPU acceleration, but it's enough. Because the problem with Adobe, especially, and this is the big sticking point, is for us in the sort of the world of post-production, they're like, basically, back in the day, we had Avid, and we were trundling along quite merrily on Avid. And then all of a sudden, a guy called Walter Merck edited a movie called Cold Mountain in 2003. And he edited it on Final Cut. There's actually a book about this. It's called Editing Final Cut on Cold Mountain on Final Cut. And what that did, that changed the game. That means we didn't, because we could get cheaper hardware, we all jumped onto Final Cut. And then Final Cut from all the way from 3 to 7, we were all using it. And some amazing films were edited on Final Cut. 300, No Country for Old Men was edited on Final Cut as David Fincher's Zodiac. And then Apple, being Apple, absolutely dropped the ball. They brought out Final Cut X. Now, Final Cut X today is a very different thing than when it first came out. It was, at the time it came out, there was no translate. You couldn't bring back a Final Cut 7 file. You couldn't export. For us in the professional world at the time, so I've got my Omarchy screensaver Spada. For us in the professional world at the time, it was a nightmare, because basically we couldn't, that was Final Cut 7, we were all using it, was basically running out of life, and we couldn't switch to X because it didn't export OMF files for Pro Tools. It was just a nightmare. So all there was in the market at the time, and this is why Adobe got the dominance with this, was Premiere. And I was literally at that turning point where I was working in a post-production facility at the time. We had to make a decision. We didn't want to go to Avid. We'd all come from that, and we didn't want to go back. And Premiere was the only option on the table. So anybody tells me it's great, sorry, I have no time for that, because I've worked with it. I've had to work with it over the years, and it's let me down on so many massive occasions. And it just was, I don't know, it's just grown into this thing. And then was the guys at Blackmagic obviously must have clicked this. And what they started to do in Resolve is add in the bits that we wanted in Final Cut 7. Someone obviously had a good look at 7 and then transported a lot of this into Resolve, and it's still going on. And Resolve now is a phenomenal editing tool. It really is. And the beauty of it is it's on Linux. So for me, I can jump across. I mean, I've cut tons of commercials with Final Cut X and 7 and Premiere. Premiere isn't a tool I want to use, but the whole point of this exercise now is there's a lot of it about there. A lot of people use Adobe stuff, and people send over Premiere projects. Now, how on Linux do you get into a Premiere project? That's quite tricky. You still need to have a Windows-based machine. So doing this means if someone sends me a Premiere project, I can just launch this for a few minutes, extract what I need, do the correct thing, export an XML file, and then I can bring all the media back into Final Cut, into Resolve, and go from there. Likewise with Photoshop, I can launch Photoshop if I really need to. I mean, there's loads of ways around doing that, but it's there. So I wouldn't need another machine. I mean, a lot of the reasons I've still got a Mac laptop here is because I need to go to Premiere. I still get projects in Premiere. I still get them sending the media. I still get the Premiere project file, and it's like, come on. Because obviously the translation between Resolve is much easier now, but you can't really do it without Premiere in the first place. So you have to keep around. So what I'll do now, I'm going to go into, I'm going to launch up there. I've done the hard part. I've logged in. I've installed Premiere, I've installed Photoshop, and I'll just show you the VM working. And then, you can do what you want. So that's, that script I've given you allows you to get to this point, and then you just log in and you can do your own thing. So hang on, so let's just come out of that. Let's switch to a new screen. So yeah, so you go into here, you've got your virtual machine thing, launch the virtual manager, ask for password, Q, authenticate, and there's my Windows machine. Now launch it. And open that one. Okay, let's get rid of this one. Let's just make this full screen. We've logged in and we're in. Now, what I've done, you may have to do a bit of tweaking in the setups. You have to add external places. So I've added an external drive here. Down the bottom, there's my drive. I've got tons of media and bits and bobs on. So that's just there. So you can just, attach a local media drive, and then we've got Premiere, which is there. So I've logged into my Adobe account because I still have to have one. They're still rinsing me out for money. Initializing application. Oh, there it is. And I'd loaded in one of those project things just so you can see it. Super fast. Here it goes. It's coming in. There it is. So I've loaded in the project. But for me, see if the video ever catches up. There it is. It is. It's getting there. So yeah. So for me, if I need to bring in a project, I can just like file, import it. It's all there. Then I can export it, get it into Resolve. So I'm not stuck. So I don't have to use, I don't have to have a Windows machine now doing this. I could just do it on this. So that's that. So, I wouldn't render out of it. I'd use it as a translation tool. Not a big fan, as you can tell. And then obviously in here we've got PHOSHOP. I don't know how, it's quite a chunky machine this. Maybe it can do it. So I've got PHOSHOP. That'll load up. And then we've got, I don't know, let's just do a new file. HDTV preset. Again, this stuff comes over and, you can install the fonts on this and do all of it. So there's my thing. Let's, and the AI slop generation works. Let's have, I don't know, photorealistic lighthouse thing. No, let's do that. Futuristic ship that flies to stormy weathers, because that's what we need. That's what we need, and there you go. So I've still got access to Firefly and to do it. And obviously, this stuff, the AI slop generation is happening in the cloud. So amazing. That's the picture I need. Yeah, there you go. So it's all working. Exit. No, I don't want to save that. And there you go. So, obviously Adobe Media Encoder is on here as well, but you can just go in and install all your Creative Cloud stuff. Okay, let's come out of that. Shut down. Let's come out of those. Let's come back to me. Full screen. So there you go. So there's Adobe Photoshop and Premiere running on Omarchy in Linux. Now, I know probably you can do this. I've only done it to help my workflow so that it's literally a translation tool. I'm never going to use it in anger. It's just there in case somebody sends me one of these files. I'll have to go, oh, Christ, open it up. And basically, I can extract what I need to do my work. So I'm not left there. And obviously at some point, with the call, I will not have to have a Mac or another computer. I got that sat there and I could go back to it. Obviously, if you don't use DaVinci Resolve, you can use Kdenlive Live, but I think that DaVinci Resolve is probably the best way to go, really, to sort of go forward with the editing on Linux. Anyway, I'm sorry that was quite long, but I hope that's been useful to someone. That script's written specifically for NVIDIA, I think. So if you start having, everybody keeps emailing, and then right at the end of the thing, okay, are you on a laptop? And things like this. So it's a desktop setup with an NVIDIA 5060 Ti in it, and it's a Ryzen card. And that's basically my rig. So if you're outside the scope of a normal desktop and you're on a laptop, I don't know if this will work. But give it a go, see how you get on. And as usual, thanks for watching.